Hey beautiful people, it's Wednesday. On Wednesdays we quite often lean into, receive a whisper from the divine. I felt this morning a real shove, urge, push, gravity around feeling into a whisper from the cards. So I've got a set of oracle cards here, set of tarot cards here. I have for a while also mixed them together. I've separated them and we are going to pull some cards. I really feel the pull, the invitation to kind of invite you all to just take a moment, come back to self, feel into self and say, just feel into this space here and feel into and say to yourself, is there a question that I am holding? Quite often we hold questions right here, and actually in fact quite often underneath that is also the answer. Okay, but that is a video for another time. So almost like want to encourage you, invite you to see if there's a question you're holding. Another way to approach it is, what is it that you want to tell me? You know, what is it that the unseen, your guides, your beloved ancestors, spirit, what is it that you want to tell me? Now, that is an approach that I have each and every time I sit down and I lean into that space to illuminate a pathway forwards. Okay, I always receive that information, and especially within an email consultation, because I'm not working with the person. I cannot see them, I don't know who they are, I might just have a name. I always invite questions. I tend to allow them first and foremost to guide me, to just absolutely tell me what is required and needed, and then I will, towards the end of that consultation, take a look at any questions, and quite often spirit have already spoken about them. So there is something very powerful in saying, okay, what is it that you want to tell me? And just allowing that to unravel. But you know, there are times we hold a very, very powerful question. Same within an in-person or Skype consultation. I will allow them to lead the direction, and then I will always say to my wonderful, incredible, courageous clients, do you, at the end of the consultation, towards the end, do you have any questions? And quite often they will say to me, do you know what? I think you've answered them all. Now, that is all to do with them. As I always say, what powers that contact, what powers that accuracy at that level, because sometimes it is mind-blowing. What powers that accuracy at that level is their love for you. They are leaning in with their sleeves rolled up and they are getting down to business. They are bringing everything that is required and everything that is needed. You know, as I say, sometimes, you know, they can be very uncomfortable things, they can be painful truths, but always delivered with love, and truth always serves us. So we can approach the cards in the same way. I always say to people, listen, if you're kind of, you know, exploring and learning or working with the cards, is try to leave the books to one side. Actually take them to a charity shop is the really great thing to do. Is let go of the books, allow the cards to speak to you, allow spirit to whisper through the cards as well. Okay, because then it becomes really organic. As spirit always saying, you've heard me say it, and I'm going to do a video about it in the coming weeks as well. All information's information. Allow the cards to speak to you. Don't allow it to be limited to a book or a tarot guide. Just allow it to be organic, because also it can shift and change from one moment to the next, from one card to the next. and that just allows it to be alive rather than one-dimensional and flat. So with that question in mind, or the approach of what is it that you want to tell me, I'm just going to take from the top of these cards. That's something I quite often do, is I get the client to shuffle them, and I just take off the top. Just lately I've been asking them to choose cards, but for years I've just taken from the top. So what we're going to do is the Oracle cards, the Art and Soul, which are a beautiful deck, is going to have the intention of a guide presenting itself, and then what's being carried within that message. And then we're going to take a couple of the Light Seer Tarot, another deck that was gifted to me, beautiful deck, and we're going to take a couple cards off them, and that is what we need to know. So actually, when I shuffled these earlier, the Art and Soul, this card jumped out the pack. So let's have a look at what it is. I'm just going to put it up to the camera. So this is a guide for this time. Oh, there we are. Got the keyword pathway. Okay, pathway. So, question I have for you: are you on a pathway? Are you moving or stationary? Okay, so are you moving or are you stationary on that pathway? We're all on a pathway, but are you moving or stationary within that pathway? Okay, and there's a lot to be said by that. The other question I just want to stir up in you is, do you feel lost or certain? So are you on a pathway? Do you feel that you're wandering, or are you certain? Another bit I want to stir up with you is, do you feel a sense of momentum pulling you, or this feeling of needing to slow down or stop? Okay, lots of questions there that can be percolated. Okay, looking at this card, there's an opening. Okay, but there's also a sense of a threshold to be crossed. You know, is it that you're standing at a crossroads and saying to yourself, I've got to make a decision. I've got to make a decision. And the feeling is with that, when we kind of are facing like a crossroads, a path that runs to the left or the path that runs to the right, is what we want to do is go, right, I just need to pause, and I need to feel into, shall I stay, shall I go? Do I go down this path? Do I go down that path? We have an expansive feeling, like a feeling of gravity that is going to be pulling us. Okay, so a lot of information, and I'm just skating over the top of this, okay, because of time. If we had more time, we'd go in more deeply. This is something we're going to be exploring in my masterclass on the 15th of February. So if you've been sitting on the fence with that, there is an opportunity to join us. There are some places left, and we are going to be exploring the cards as a tool. My stance on this for many years has been that the cards serve as a tool to illuminate and show us, and are very solution orientated rather than prediction orientated. I can't remember the last time that I had someone approach me and say, could I have a tarot reading? Most people approach me and say, can I have a consultation? Or they say, can I have a reading? If they know me and they know of me, they will say, could I have a consultation? If they are just coming into my sphere and world, it will be quite often, could I book in for a reading? Okay, cannot remember the last time when someone said to me, can you do turn some cards? Okay, so it's these are very, very powerful tools. It's something that we explore very deeply in the masterclass, something I use within a consultation at the end, and it does really illuminate another layer, and quite often reinforces what has been said already. All right, so that is the guide. The guide is the path, right? The pathway, the opening up. It's like this sense of a pathway being opened up, but you may be standing at the edge of that pathway going, shall I step on it? Okay, and you'll feel that, you'll know that. Okay, so this is what we need to know. Okay, interesting, because they have a similar story. Okay, the Chariot and the Six of Swords. Now you could be scrambling and looking at the literal written meanings of these. Don't. Let the card speak to you. And if you look, if I can get that up, the biggest thing I get with both of these cards is the sense of movement. Interesting, because it ties into this card, yet they're two very different decks. But that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a story, okay, and how that story then can be joined up. All right, two different decks, and there's a story joining up. Beautiful. What a lovely way to kind of share with you and show you the sort of inner mechanics of how these cards can work. It's a very powerful tool. So let's start with this one here. You've got the pathway, okay, now you've got movement. You know, so it is there a sense of, are you being pulled? Is there a sense of movement? Have you got a feeling of an urge to make a step, to move away from where you are, to cross a threshold, to move into something different, something new? Or is it that you've got a feeling that you just need to stand still? I would say that we're living in a time that those two things are really powerful, right? So you've got this sense of either within your life you feel like you're stationary or stuck, or you've got this sense of there is movement and you've got this feeling of gravity. Now, if you're stationary and stuck, it's going to be for good reason. Okay, some of you would have known of the story about the cosmic puncher. Long and short of it is a puncher an inconvenience? A lad up in the Scottish mountains who I bumped into a Canadian lad. I was cycling from the bottom to the top, then from the top right down to the bottom over the Grampian and Cairngorm mountains. Bumped into this lad who was telling me a story about a puncher that took an hour and a half to fix. And he took a tube in and out, tried to look for a hole, couldn't, really strange, put another set of tubes in, pumped out, went flat, put another set in, and it held. Took an hour and a half, which should have taken 5 minutes. He come off this trail, which was a logging trail, onto a minor road, and as he cycled onto this minor road, he looked along and there was a logging wagon, trailer on its side, and all this timber all the way down the road. If he had been any sooner, potentially he would have been caught up in it. So a puncher, a cosmic puncture, serves us. So if you find yourself stationary, it could be for good reason. If you've got this feeling of movement, absolutely, again, there's this feeling of being pulled, gravity. Okay, things are in shift and change, but I feel those two polarities are really powerful in the world. Either you're stationary or you're in movement. Okay, and the thing is, if you're in movement or even stationary, it's about bringing everything more into balance. See, the world is completely out of balance. All this rupture and disruption that's going on in the world is because the world is righting itself. But because it's righting itself, it means that there's going to be disruption. All right, so for things to come back into balance, it can be a very disruptive time. Now, this card here, the Six of Wands, this to me is the unseen. This is spirit. These are symbols of the other world. that spirit are pulling you along. Okay, they are pulling you along. You are guided. You know, so if you've got that sense of gravity to step onto a path and you're feeling it really, really deeply, I would say that is worth listening to, because there's a sense of gravity. You are being pulled. So when I look at this card, it always speaks to me of being pulled along by the unseen. There we are. We could spend even more time unpacking all of that, but I just wanted to touch it, stir up some thoughts, and it's something we do from time to time. So for now, I'm going to leave all that with you. If you've got any questions, or you want to share how those cards spoke to you, or how they're relevant to you at this time, leave your comments in tongue-tied then. Leave your comments within the video, and we can share, we can alchemize, we can stir it all up, and I love to know how this lands with you. All right, until next time, keep shining, sending you all lots of love.